Not Quite
Darkness
is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another great episode of Not Quite Darkness. We're hitting a big one today. My name is Keith Brooks. I'm here with Chad Dowdy with his Overlook Hotel to give you a warning of what we're watching. Chad, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You were just saying before we got on that I watched The Shining on Mother's Day. Perfect Mother's Day present.
Yeah.
My wife sat down with me, mother of my child, and I'm like, let's check this movie out.
Baby, no, pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening. Yes, so, and obviously you could tell Rob's not with us because we wanted our own chance to shine, which takes me to the film that we are discussing today. That is, of course, Stanley Kubrick directed, 1980 released. Shelley Duvall, Jack Nicholson. I think Shelley Duvall would be very happy we said it in that order. And it is The Shining. Chad, I don't remember how we started the show, but yeah, it's the fucking Shining. What the fuck?
Yeah, so it's not like we're going to bring a lot of new information to the table for this. There's documentaries, there's crazy information about this film. There's just a documentary called Room 237, just about the room, So, yeah, we're not going to bring a lot of new stuff to the table, but maybe we'll have some fun talking about the movie. As far as that goes.
Yeah, I've probably seen the movie 6 or 7 times in my life. Every time it impresses me more and more. How many times have you seen it?
I'd say 4 or 5. It's not crazy. It's going to be a hot take with this. I'm not like super in love with this movie. I like it. I enjoy this movie. I understand its place in horror history. I'm just in general not a big Kubrick fan.
Oh my God. What the fuck? Is Rob there with a gun to your head? Is that why you're saying some bullshit? Look, I'm not a fan of this. Is one of those movies that divides me because I love this movie, but at the same time, it makes me hate Stanley Kubrick because of the backstory of like everything that he's done to Shelley Duvall. So that's such a deplorable thing. That being said, there are directors who have done much worse, like Bryan Singer, just in general. You know what I mean? So right. I can't hate Kubrick as much as I hate like Bryan Singer. So I can still justify watching the movie, even though what a dick. But still, yeah, I love this. So then if you hate Stanley Kubrick, hot take, you heard it first here, folks. Chad Dowdy hates everything that cinema is. Let's talk about The Shining. What happens in The Shining?
Real fast before we get into The Shining. Stanley Kubrick, 2001, not a fan. Snore fest.
Love it.
My gosh. I want to go to sleep when I watch that movie. What's another one? Like How I Learned to Stop.
Dr. Strangelove.
Dr. Strangelove. Oh my gosh. Boring.
Love it.
Strangelove.
Love it.
Eyes Wide Shut. Also boring.
It's got boobies in it. Like, I don't understand. I mean, this one does too. So I don't know why you're complaining, but like, I feel Stanley Kubrick is a filmmaker for filmmakers, because every time you mention one of his movies, like normally when you mention The Shining, it's like, oh, those Steadicam shots, or Barry Lyndon. It's like, oh, the lighting. Like those are the first things that are mentioned, and they are super impressive. But there's just something about it, like Kubrick, that to me hits that raw nerve, even back from Spartacus. Like, I just love his movies. Yeah, I think he's got a great eye and a great, like, he's excellent at tone. He really puts you in the mindset that he wants you to experience for his films. And even if it's not the most realistic of tones, which I think is something we'll probably discuss with this one, it still, to me, is always powerful, and just some great choices and iconic moments. Like, even if you don't like his movies, almost every single one of his films has an iconic moment that has penetrated the zeitgeist of culture just because it is so momentous in its own way.
Especially as far as, this is a horror movie. 2001, a lot of people, the quintessential sci-fi film. You got Barry Lyndon, you know, dark comedy with Doctor Strangelove, and it's just he runs the gamut of everything that he does. I get it. I respect his talent,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying he's a horrible director. I'm just saying a lot of his films are boring to me. My favorite film of his is A Clockwork Orange. I do really like that one. I mean, it's
Absolutely. It's a
messed
great
up as
one.
all get out, of course,
Yeah.
but I do like that one. But for the most part, not The Shining, but for the most part, a lot of his films, I'm just bored,
Yeah.
really.
I can't.
So do you want to stop the podcast now and just
it's over. It's not
yeah.
quite worth it anymore. But let me hear what you have to say about this movie, and then we'll
Yeah.
go from there.
So, it's what you were just talking about, iconic moments. So right off the bat, we've got the iconic music. We have the drone shot that's not really a drone that you have seen 1,000 times in movies now. Just the overhead shot of the car driving up, to the mountain. So, I'm not sure if that's the first time, but I wouldn't be like
I think it
surprised.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I get it. Like that music is awesome. No matter where you are, you hear that music, you're like, I love that music.
Yeah.
I'm a horror fan. I love that music. It's
Yeah.
awesome. So basically, Jack's driving up to the Overlook Hotel, and he's interviewing for a job to be the caretaker. And partway through the interview, we cut back to uh, his wife, Shelley Duvall, and I like the fact that you said her name first because yes, everyone knows Jack Nicholson is Jack Nicholson, and this is one of his most famous roles. But she is amazing in this film. I love her so much in this
Yeah.
movie. Now I understand what she went through for that performance, and it shows. She looks in almost every scene once it gets going exhausted, terrified. I mean, it's one of the realest horror performances I've ever seen.
Absolutely. And
And
I
it,
feel, and not to, I mean, I know we're still in the opening frames of the movie, but this is my overall thought of it is that Nicholson, who reminds me of my grandfather, had the same eyebrows that Jack Nicholson has, but a very different demeanor. So every time I see Nicholson like eyebrows, I just think of my papa, like, which is weird. But he is so fucking over the top in this movie. It's ridiculous, but Shelley Duvall is the grounded center that makes everything believable. Like she is such a real person where Nicholson is a lunatic from the first moment you see him. Which I think might be one of the points of the
he
movie.
really is.
Yeah. It's so like this
Yeah.
is why he got the Joker. This movie, what a great cap of the 1980s. Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance to Jack Nicholson as Jack Napier. That's a direct line, So
Yeah, no doubt. And I even wrote in my notes, it's pretty funny. Best eyebrows in the business. Like his eyebrows are doing better work than 90% of the actors working today. It's
absolutely
amazing how awesome he looks in this movie. But as I said, we meet Shelley Duvall and their son Danny. And apparently Danny has a imaginary friend named Tony that he talks with his talks with his finger. And Tony knows things. He's, we'll find out later, Danny has the shining, but Tony knows things.
Mhm.
But back to the interview with Jack, what I love about this is the setup. They just lay it all out right here at the beginning. You're going to be by yourself with your family, just the three of you, for 5 months. And you can write all you want. You just need to take care of the place. And the roads are going to be closed. Some people have isolation issues. The setup is so simple.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's just, you already know exactly what it's going to be. You got cabin fever with these three people in a huge hotel. There's ghosts and things in it, but you don't even need ghosts necessarily. It's
Absolutely
just,
not. Yeah.
you're going crazy in the hotel for 5 months in that huge hotel, just the three of you. Yeah, it's crazy. So as I ask most of the time, Keith, I would not take this job So I'm out of this movie before it even starts.
I would be there in a heartbeat. Like, especially if that motel had a swimming pool or the jacuzzi. I'm like, 5 months? Can we make it longer? This sounds great. You're buying all my groceries and I just get to live here in this mansion. Fuck yes. Sign me up.
The grocery thing is pretty cool, as
Yeah.
far as when we see the pantry and everything and all the food. But, I'm thinking 1980 at this hotel. Y- You're going to get bored pretty quickly. Like today, if I were to do that and I've got Netflix
Yeah.
and I've got all this other stuff, I've got, I could Zoom people, I can do whatever. I think it would be okay in that scenario. But 1980, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, because my thing is in 1980, I was -5. So I don't really know what the climate was that much. So, but I'm assuming there's still like PBS. I'm assuming I could still like bring some porno mags in or something like that. And I would still like, yeah, people suck. Like this hotel to myself, that's great. Sign me up.
There might be PBS, but it goes off the air at like 10 o'clock at night. So
That's fine.
you got to keep that in mind too.
I'd go to the jacuzzi. I'd go to the swimming pool. I would even stay after they found Jack Nicholson frozen in the maze. I'd be like, all right, guys, clean that up. I'll be back inside. Like that would be fine.
Just think about it from the standpoint of like Danny, the kid, this 5-year-old or ever how old he is. What's he doing for 5 months? Really? He's riding his tricycle for hours and hours on end. That's going to get old.
And he's got to be 5 because if he's any older than that, shouldn't this fucking kid be in school?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, it's crazy. But I also feel I have a lot of feelings about Danny Torrance. I just don't understand him as a kid. It's always creepy to me that Tony lives in his mouth. What a weird fucking phrase that is. Just like that is, it feels perverted, but I don't know why. And then I just don't think the Tony kid is the best of actors, but he is super creepy. So does that make him the best of actors? Like I don't know. It's a whole thing.
Well, I also heard this too. Don't know if it's actually true because I find it really hard to believe. Is that the actor, playing Danny, did not know he was in a horror movie. Find that hard to believe to a degree.
Yeah, to a
Yes,
degree.
I'm aware how movies work. I'm aware that the stuff that we're seeing is not exactly what Danny's seeing,
Yeah.
as far as that stuff goes. But like when he's freaking out and scared, what are they telling him is happening here? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like for him to do that.
I could see like 2 or 3 scenes specifically that he would have to know. But aside
Yeah.
from that, I totally think you could get away with him never knowing. But then I think the big problem would be him seeing Shelley Duvall crying in a corner like every day. Like, what's going on? Like, So,
I thought this was just a loving, family sitcom that I'm a part of. Yeah.
exactly.
So
I don't know.
anyway, I don't to a degree, that's a running joke in our house. I don't believe that Danny didn't know that he was in a horror movie, but so be it. So as Jack's, doing the interview, they tell him about a prior caretaker that lived there with his family, his wife and 2 daughters, and he went crazy and killed them and killed himself.
Crazy
Kind of
Grady.
like, kind of like Amityville Horror,
Yeah.
kind of deal. You're coming into the house and Jack, he doesn't care, about that. So, and to be honest, that would not dissuade me from being a part of this whole venture. It's the whole isolation thing, not the fact that, so long ago somebody went crazy and killed their family. That's not going to bother me necessarily.
I would just be like, I don't want that room. Like that would be the first thing. Like, but then there are, and right after this, they sort of, once the family gets there, they sort of walk you through all of the set pieces of the house and like what everything is. And I think it's a brilliant job of filmmaking because you're literally saying, this is going to be important. This is going to be important. This is going to be important. But
Right.
in there's one little line where he's like, oh yeah, and it's buried on an Indian burial ground. Anyway, right over here, you could find our maze. And it's like, that is the moment I'd be like, let's back up. Let's
Yeah, that should have came out in the interview process, sir.
Yes.
Like, I get it, somebody died, but tell me about this burial ground business because I've seen Psycho.
Yeah.
Although Psycho, I don't think it's came out yet. So, Who knows?
Psycho has Poltergeist
I'm not
has that.
Psycho. Poltergeist. I'm sorry.
I was trying to figure out like that. What a weird twist. Norman Bates went insane because of white genocide across the Native Americans.
Yeah, you didn't know the backstory to Psycho?
Yeah,
That's weird,
great.
Keith.
It's great.
Thought you were a horror fan.
You killed the Creek Indians. I'm gonna have to dig up my mother. Like
Exactly. So we also find out that not only does Danny have an imaginary friend, the imaginary friend knows things in the sense that Danny's in the bathroom brushing his teeth, and Tony's like telling him, "Your dad got the job, and he's about to call your mom and tell her." And that's what happens. So clearly, there's some sort of psychic ability here, whether or not that it's some entity living in Danny's mouth, like you said, or if Danny just has some sort of powers and he's manifesting it this way.
Mhm.
And then, we actually, like you said, we go to the hotel. The whole family does. We see the whole area. We see the hedge maze. Danny goes off and plays by himself. And like you said, it does a nice job of setting up all of the places that will become important later.
Yeah.
But we also meet like the head chef, which is Dick Halloran, and he's talking to them. And when he has Danny and Wendy off by himself, he's talking verbally to Wendy, but he looks at Danny and he talks to him in his mind. So, and I thought that was a great way to do it. It was really cool how the sound went down and you could still see Dick like running his mouth, like clearly he's talking to Wendy, but he's also saying something completely different in his mind. So I like how they did that as opposed to him just being silent and talking in his mind, to Danny.
Well, plus
Danny
it also shows him as the Obi-Wan figure that he has enough control over it. But it's also Scatman Crothers, so like he can do any fucking thing he wants to. So,
and I know we talked about how bad Shelley Duvall had it. Scatman Crothers same way. I don't know if you heard that, but he like cried multiple times, because just the constant takes that he had to do with Kubrick, which that's what one of the things Kubrick's known for, as far as that goes. But so eventually he gets Danny off to the side and they're talking, and that's when he explains that Danny has the shining, which is what they're talking about. Mental powers, telepathy.
mm-hmm.
You can kind of see the past, you can see the future, and what I missed saying was that when Tony was talking to Danny about going to the hotel, Tony wants no part of this hotel. He does not want to go to the hotel, but he doesn't want to tell Danny why.
Yeah.
And then Danny gets some visions, of the dead girls and all that. And what I forgot to talk about, because I do like this, is he passes out. The doctor comes in, looks over Danny, says he's good, no problem. So their answer is, okay, perfect. Let's go isolate for like 5 months.
Yeah, that's
After
the
this kid just
80s
passed
health
out.
system. Give him a cigarette and send him to be alone for a while.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, I know the doctor said, oh, that's not going to happen again. I'd be shocked if this happens again. It was just hormones or whatever. I was like, your plan now is just to be stuck on a mountain away from any doctors after this kid literally just passed out.
It's crazy.
No thanks.
It's great. I also, a good little moment that happens here too. Once they get there and before they share the bowl of ice cream, Scatman Crothers starts calling Danny Doc. And there's that scene where they go out in the hallway, and then Shelley Duvall's reaction, this look of like genuine, how did you know that? Like, it's so real and genuine. Like, again, probably one of the most underappreciated performances in the history of cinema. Not only horror, but Shelley Duvall just fucking kills this. So,
yeah, and even when they're talking to the doctor, we get a little backstory too, where we find out that, because this is important, Jack, I don't know if you would say he's an alcoholic. Probably, they don't outright say it, but he drinks.
Mhm.
And he came home one night. He was drunk. He drank too much, and he scoops up Danny because Danny's made a mess and dislocates his shoulder.
But it's
And
also
because of that,
It's also like, so Danny has to be older than 5, right? Because that was a couple of years ago. At least Jack says when he's at the bar and doing this thing, whatever he's doing with his eyebrows. But I don't know. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
So yeah, he dislocates his shoulder, so he like stops drinking cold turkey
Yeah.
after that. Like that's it. I'm not having another drink. And it's kind of weird because, like you said, it seems like they mentioned it was a couple years ago, but later when Jack is like at the bar, he says something like, "It's been 6 months since I've had a drop," but I might have misunderstood
Yeah.
the timeline or what somebody was saying
Plus,
in
in
that
that
piece.
whole
But
scene too, when he's doing at the bar, it's almost like he's going in and out of playing a character, right? Because there's like that moments where he's like, "I always said you were the best, Leonard," or whatever his name is. When it's like he's never met this person before, so he's like obviously playing this character thing, and then cycling in and out of his real life. So it's hard to tell. I don't know.
yeah, it is weird. That's one of my problems with the movie is like I like rules in a lot of movies. And I know ghost movies, they're fast and loose with some of the rules, but we'll get to that, when we get to the thing. But um, so now when Dick is talking to Danny, talking about The Shining and all that stuff, Danny can tell, that Dick is afraid of room 237. And Dick's like, just I'm not afraid of that room, just stay away from that room. Don't
Very, very convincing, Dick. Very convincing.
yeah, exactly. Just don't go near that room. But nothing to be scared about, basically. And then we cut to a month later, and they've been there a month isolated. So I thought all of this leading up to here is just a great setup. Everything. We get everything that we need. We meet the cast of characters. We know the gist of it. We know the potential for harm based on some backstory stuff that we've heard. And now we're in it. And it's just these, 3 characters living in this hotel. It's a pretty perfect opening,
Yeah.
I think, as far as horror movies go. It gives you everything. Um, and then now we're going to get this many times, but it's not another iconic shot is Danny on his tricycle. I just love the sound design
Me
with
too.
him on the tricycle. It is awesome. The shot is awesome. We're just following him at his level. And no wonder he uses it often because it just looks great. I mean, it's really cool.
But it's also like I what I love about that shot too is that it is so, to answer your question of what is Danny doing at this hotel for 5 months, he's just going around in circles, just like they all are. Also, that cyclical nature of everything in the hotel being, it's just going to keep repeating itself. That Danny's ride represents all of that. Plus, it's also Stanley Kubrick like putting his dick on the table and being like, "Look at how good my set is." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. Because we follow him for a while.
absolutely. And just the fact that we keep seeing that he does loops around. He's really employing that camera, but the change in the sound of wood as he goes from different type of floor to different type of floor. Oh, god damn.
It's good.
Yeah.
For sure. Um, and then we're just also establishing what they're doing at the hotel now themselves. So again, Danny's playing. Jack clearly has writer's block. And the mom, she's making food. She's also, her and Danny are playing in the maze. We get a little bit more of that hedge maze that'll come into play later. We find out that a true storm is coming that will probably, knock out power lines or definitely close the road as far as that goes. So we're just getting some basic information here. And then Danny's playing and he drives by room 237. And, he freaks out a little bit because he's still seeing visions. He's too scared to go into the room. And now we see Jack writing. The writer's block is gone, apparently, and he's actually writing now. He's in it. And this scene is tough to watch. When Wendy comes in and he's writing, and she is so earnest and so sweet, and literally one of 2 people she can interact with in this hotel. And she's just coming in to see how the writing's going and saying, well, I'll bring you a sandwich later and maybe you'll let me read some of the stuff. And Jack just goes crazy. Like he's immediately a psychopath as far as that goes. Now, I I understand to a degree being in the zone in writing because I have been in the zone in writing before. And you feel like I can't be interrupted because like, I'm getting all this out. This is amazing. But even if I was interrupted, I'm not going to act the way he did. It
Yeah.
was crazy. I mean, he's like cussing at her. He just says, "Get the fuck out of here." And he's
Yeah.
like, "If I'm in this room and you hear typing, don't come in here.
If you
If I'm
don't
in
hear
this room,
typing,
yeah, don't
don't
if you don't
come
hear
in here.
typing, don't come in here because I'm working no matter what. Don't come in this fucking room." And all she does is just wants a little human interaction with an adult.
Well, and even more than that, she also wants to bring him a sandwich. She's trying to help him. And what I find so interesting about it is, Stephen King often writes about writers, and he doesn't necessarily always write about them in flattering ways. And so it's some part of it is exercising his own hatred towards himself. And even Kubrick, like it's ironic that this is part of the Kubrick scene when this is what Kubrick was doing, and so
Right.
just with the comment it makes about the creative mindset is just so compelling and interesting. And also, earlier, the one shot that I love about this is the maze shot, the aerial maze shot as we're going in. That was a little bit before that. God.
Oh yeah. Where
Ugh.
Jack, it's another great shot of Jack looking over the maze.
Yeah.
And then it zooms in to them like actually in the maze. That was cool.
Yeah. That's
for
incredible. And then, I think this also is so, this other scene specifically about her being chastised by Jack is so poignant because it's at the entire time she's taking it like an abused wife until Danny walks in with a bruise on his neck. And that's the first time we see her turn on him, of like, how could you do this? You did this to him, blah, blah, blah. She
Right.
runs up. So,
Yep. And so now, she leaves the room, upset, and she's checking the phone. The phones aren't working because now the phones are dead. So she goes to the CB to, contact the police to check. And this is such a non-important scene other than the fact establishing that the phone lines are down. But I love this scene so much
me too.
because it's her. It's all her. She is just wanting to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
And just, I can feel from her that she does not want to hang up with this cop.
Yeah.
She just like she's checking on the phone lines. How's it, how long will it take for it's fixed? You think, and he's like, it could be all winter, man, whatever. And he's like, all right, over and out. And she's just like, okay, thanks, bye, over and out. And I just can feel that she does not want to hang up. She wants to talk to somebody because she's not getting it from Jack. And Danny's a little kid.
Yeah.
It's terrible for her.
And Danny's also not the most talkative person. I think, in modern terms, he would probably be diagnosed as on the spectrum, other than the fact he has a creature living in his mouth. But I think also one of the best parts of that scene is as she's talking to that officer over the CB radio, she starts off by not saying over and then learns to say over from him, and how quickly she adapts to that. It's just so cute. It's just so real. She just picks up with it and so natural. I just love her in this movie.
I do too. But yeah, I can't praise her enough for sure. So now we're back to Danny on the tricycle. And this is, again, iconic shot. Danny turns the corner and you've got the two twin girls standing at the end of the hall, come and play with us, Danny, or whatever they say. It's again, there's plenty of iconic moments in this film, but that, people go as Halloween as the twins, that's what they do. And they're barely in the movie.
Yeah.
But they're iconic horror imagery. I mean, that's for sure. So that's super dope. And then like even later, Shelley Duvall is still kind of, because of her interaction with Jack, she's leery from Jack now because Danny wants to go get his toy out of the bedroom and Jack's sleeping because he basically sleeps all day, as far as that goes. And she clearly does not want him to go do it because, again, she doesn't want him to wake his dad up. But it's also like, well, if you did wake him up, is he going to be pissed because, he just wants to sleep or whatever? But she acquiesces. and Danny goes to, get his toy in the room, and Jack's not sleeping. He's just sitting on the bed looking creepy as all get out, like he's losing his mind. It just seems like. Um, and this is so funny to me because he says, Danny, come over here, sit next to him. They talk for a minute. And then Danny asks him, uh, hey, Dad, you would never hurt me and Mom, would you? And Jack's answer is the creepiest, I would never hurt you delivery in movie history. He's saying, I would never hurt you or your mother. But he's like, the way he's saying it is like, I would never motherfucking hurt you or that fucking bitch of a wife ever.
Yeah.
That's that's the subtext of what he's saying. But yeah, I really might hurt you.
Yeah.
It's so good. That interaction. I love it so much. And so, yeah, again, later, Danny's playing because there's nothing else he can do in this damn hotel. And a ball rolls up and he sees that the ball actually came from room 237. This time, the room is open. So he's freaking out about that. And then we cut to Wendy. She's doing the caretaker stuff. She's like working on the boiler or something. I don't know what she was doing, but it wasn't Jack doing any caretaking. She's doing the caretaking on top of feeding them. And Jack is doing nothing but writing and sleeping. Apparently, that's what it seems like. But then she hears Jack screaming, and she runs to him. She actually does go into the room because he's like screaming and he's having a nightmare. And he tells her that he had a nightmare, the worst nightmare ever. He dreamed that he killed her and Danny or whatever. And who among us hasn't had a dream about killing their significant other? I mean, that's nothing to that.
For some of us, that is the dream. But I think like the thing that I love about it is that next part, because she you could tell she's sort of like scared or shocked, but she's accepting of it. And then he says, but not just killed, I chopped you up into little pieces. And that's the part that like, as it's almost the way he describes it is sort of like a guy who's been in a relationship for 6 months floating the idea of a threesome to his girlfriend. Like he feels like he's like, that would be crazy, right? Like, unless
it's a super weird dream.
right? You think it's a weird dream. Like you wouldn't be down for that, would you? Like that's the way like he delivers that line, which is so uncomfortable. But yeah.
That is awesome. That's perfect. That is so true. So, while they're talking about this, that's when, to your point from earlier, Danny walks in and he's clearly injured. He's got like red marks on his face. He's been attacked. So Shelley Duvall obviously thinks Jack did it because who else is it going to be? It's just the three of them in the hotel, and Jack has already hurt Danny in the past.
And it's what he just said, so like, yeah.
Yeah. So, she grabs him and she runs out of the room. And Jack is like, he didn't say it, but he's like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is weird as all get out, And so Jack's just losing it. And again, he's doing the crazy stuff, walking down the hallway, waving his arms around. And he goes to the hotel bar, which is empty. And it's already been established that there's no booze on site because when they were giving the tour, they talked about insurance purposes, that all the booze is removed from the premises. So there's no booze. And the line that Jack says when he sits down at the bar, he says, it's almost like under his breath, I'd give my soul for a glass of beer. That's what he says. And then immediately, like, the camera pans over and there's a bartender there. And, the bartender acts like, he's known Jack forever, like you said. And he's got a drink for him. And Jack is drinking and he's playing a character. Like, like you said, just having a conversation with this guy. And he really is doing like, again, it's like a trope with bartenders where you tell bartenders your problems, as far as that goes. But he's talking about how, he touched Danny one time and his wife will never let him live it down. And she'll never forgive me for that one, instance or whatever. And I didn't touch him this time and she doesn't believe me. And he's just, he's just unloading, on this bartender. So I do like that aspect of it. So eventually, though, Wendy comes running in and she's talked to Danny, and she's basically says, it wasn't you, Jack. There's someone else in the hotel, which is also super creepy. Just
Yeah.
that alone. If because yes, it's possible that your kid did that to himself for attention. It's possible that Jack did it,
Mhm.
based on past history. But the kid is saying that a woman did it in room 237. So it is not inconceivable that somebody could be in that hotel because it's huge
Yeah.
and somebody could be staying there, So yeah, that's super creepy, as far like I'd be terrified. Like I feel like I would believe my kid and I'd be terrified about this. So um then we cut to it's so funny. Dick Halloran in his room in like Florida, wherever he's staying,
Yeah.
with multiple pictures on the wall of naked
Black
chicks.
velvet, like nude
Yes.
photos. I love it. That's because it's
So
that slow pull out across his feet till we're at his dick, and then we see the picture. It's like this is
but even before that,
Dick's
the
POV.
TV's watching. There's one above the TV
Yeah.
too. It's like both parts of the room. So again, Keith, you know about movie making. You know about aesthetics. You know more about, hey, the director was trying to do this and stuff. You got any thoughts on
Well,
what they're trying to say with these pictures?
two thoughts. One is Stanley Kubrick just wanted to be like, I want people to know this character fucks, that he's good to children, but then he uses that shining to fuck around. Or the second thought is that Stanley Kubrick didn't know a lot of black people. So he just assumed that was the only type of decoration that they had. You know what I mean? Like it's
That is awesome. Yes, I love it. I think it's the latter.
yeah,
That's what I think.
me too. Me
Yeah.
too.
So while he's in the room, Dick clearly has a vision of what could be or might be happening at the Overlook Hotel. So then we cut back to the hotel, and Jack's going to check out room 237. And he goes into the room, he walks into the bathroom, and there is a woman in the bathroom. She stands up, completely naked, full frontal, and she just walks towards Jack, and they just start making out.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I bet you thought we weren't going to have the same issue that we had in all the other movies, but this is the problematic age difference. When Jack looks in the mirror and he sees that he's making out with 100-year-old lady that's rotting. The
That is
streak is alive, Keith.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't even think about that. That's awesome. I also love the fact that like when Jack opens the door, naked woman in the bathtub. Oh, this must be the lady that choked my son. Thank you so much.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah, because the look on his face is like, I'm crazy, but I also like where this is going.
yeah, this is
You
a
know,
good
like,
kind of
as
crazy.
she's getting out.
Yeah.
Exactly. I kind of like this girl. So when he sees that like she looks disgusting, he freaks out and just, backs out of the room and, takes off. But and what I missed is I can't remember. Does he close the room? Do you remember at all? Or is it just he just runs out of the room? I can't remember.
I think he just runs out of the room.
Yeah, I think he does too, because it's weird that like we don't come back to that room based
Ever.
on all that.
Yeah.
But Jack goes to Wendy and he tells Wendy that nobody was there. And to be fair, if I was just cheating with 100-year-old ghost, I probably wouldn't tell my wife about it either. So, that's not crazy that he basically has said, nope, kid's crazy.
Yeah.
You're crazy. There's nobody here. But she still rightly thinks something weird is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants to leave. And Jack's like, you're not fucking going anywhere. I love this place. And, no one is leaving this hotel. And again, it's creepy. And it's like, he's the man of the house and he put his foot down. He just leaves. He said, nobody's leaving. That's it.
Yeah.
And,
goes to get a drink
that's
like
just-
a real man. Yeah.
exactly. So Jack leaves the room. He goes back to the bar, but now it's part of the bar is also like a ballroom, and the ballroom is just full of like hundreds of people now. It's not just the bartender. It's like a full on party going on.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack sits down. He has a drink, but uh, a random waiter walks by and spills something on his coat, and they go to the bathroom to wash it off. And in talking to the waiter, excuse me, Jack asks him his name, and his name is Grady. That is the same guy that killed his family
And
at the beginning that they were talking about.
that moment too, oh my, like that's my favorite moment of Jack's throughout this entire movie, is again that moment of recognition. Like there's this like sort of shock that Jack experiences on hearing that name and then starts putting it together. And that just quiet work that Nicholson's doing that's the most grounded he is in the entire movie. And I fucking love it. I love that whole scene is probably my favorite scene in the entire film, because we get to that. Jack starts saying, "You were this person." "No, I don't remember that, sir. You killed your wife and your daughters, and you put a bullet in your own brain." He's like, "I don't have a recollection of that, sir. You were the caretaker, sir. Please forgive me if I disagree with you. You're the caretaker. You've always been the caretaker, sir." And it's such like a creepy Lovecraftian, things will be as they always have been. The house wants you sort of inference that happens. And I think this is kind of like the first time it really is concrete with that idea that the house is sort of speaking for itself. And I love that. It's creepy as fuck to me.
Right. And I do like how you're quoting the scene. I'm glad you stopped, because then they talk. The guy tells Jack that your son Danny's trying to get help. He's trying to bring Dick Halloran here to help, but that's not really how they say it. And I'm not really going to say how they say it. No,
But
I would say you probably don't need to say how they say it either,
I
even
also-
though your accent was spot on.
Thanks. I also love like when Jack he repeats it, it's almost like he's shocked you said it too. He's like, "Wait, did you just say?" Like that's
Exactly. So it's crazy. And then Wendy hears that Danny, he's like basically in a trance, and he's just saying red rum, red rum, red rum, which I feel like horror movie fans, if you've never even seen The Shining, you probably heard the term red rum, before.
Absolutely.
It's, it's in the lexicon.
I think every heavy metal band from 2000 to 2006 had a song called Red Rum.
Right.
And I think they refer to it in the quintessential work, The Shining from The Simpsons.
The Shining.
The Shining.
So, and she's trying to talk to Danny, but he's just saying red rum. But then he's like, it's Tony now. And he's like, Danny's not here, Mrs. Torrance or whatever. And I really like this because it's trauma.
Yeah.
Danny went through some trauma, and this is how the child is coping with it. The child
Absolutely.
is no longer here. It's my imaginary friend is here to protect me, and I want no part of this. I really like that aspect of how Danny is coping with this.
Yeah.
Because again, The Shining is not really this imaginary friend. It's just how his power manifests. It's how Danny sees his power. You learn that more, especially with Dr. Sleep and stuff like that, the sequels and all that in the sequel.
Yeah.
But it's not like a real imaginary friend. It's just the trauma that Danny's going through.
Absolutely. And it's the way he sort of manifests it or flows it into something. I think it is, I think one of the brilliant things about this movie is that it does touch on so many things that in of themselves can be a whole film, whether it's the abuse scenario that Shelley Duvall's going through. So much of that relationship plays like it's always been an abusive relationship, or Danny's sort
Definitely.
of DID-esque, autism-esque sort of vibes. Even like ever since I was young, the first time I watched this movie, it's sad, but it reminded me of my parents who had an abusive relationship, right? But there were always certain cues throughout the film that made me uncomfortable, just like set pieces, and they always put these different ideas in my head. Like for a long time after watching it as a child, I always thought that Danny wasn't really Jack's kid and that he was a stepdad. And there's nothing about that in the movie, but that's just the way he always treated him to me. It always felt
Right.
disassociated. You know what I mean? And I just think some of that is so artistically done and driven to make you uncomfortable with the family dynamic. I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry, I just went on right.
Yeah, so Jack is steadily losing his mind. So now that, Grady told him he's got to do something about this, Jack goes and he messes up the CB radio. Meanwhile, Dick Halloran, who's been trying to reach the hotel, is, in Florida, and he's just like, fuck it. I'm going to the hotel. So we get what I think is completely unnecessary road trip information with Halloran. We don't need any of this stuff. Sure, he can try to get a hold of the hotel, and then he walks out of his room in Florida. We don't need all the stuff that we get. I'm surprised we didn't get a scene of him picking out the toothbrush that he's going to take on this trip, because like, we get it. He's going to the hotel, but we see him on the plane. What, the audience doesn't know where he's going, so he's got to ask the flight attendant, hey, how long before we land in Denver, ma'am? Yeah, we know, okay? We know where you're going, all right? Then he lands, and he has to call and set up how he gets a snowcat, but he's going to be there. Like,
but this is one of my favorite stories. Okay, so, well, first of all, I feel like it's this tension build, or it's trying to be. I think this part could have been pushed a little bit further.
It fails.
But will he make, goddamn, harsh words, will he make it in time to beat, Jack from doing whatever Jack's going to do? And so at that point, it's like two trains heading for a collision course, which I kind of like. But so the guy he calls to get the snowcat is the man who plays Duke in the Rocky films, Apollo Creed's trainer. Right. So he was a master chess player. And Stanley Kubrick had heard about this before he comes to set. And Stanley Kubrick challenged him to a game of chess. Tony Duke Evers wins the game. Stanley Kubrick stands up, breaks the board in half, and tosses it, quits for the day, and they don't shoot again until the next day. And that's like the epitome of the Stanley Kubrick working experience, I guess. Yeah,
because I definitely heard that they played chess and they didn't shoot anymore, but I didn't know about the Kubrick getting mad.
Yeah.
And that dude's in one scene,
one scene.
Again, he's in a unnecessary scene as well. Yeah. There's like, I understand what you're saying and trying to do, but it doesn't work for me. It really does not work at all.
I'm happy to see.
No, thanks.
I'm happy to see. I'm like, yeah, man, you need that snowcat money. Yeah.
Maybe we just needed more naked pictures of women in the background.
That'd have been great. That'd have been great. Yeah. That's
so. Now we're back to the hotel. Wendy goes to check on Jack, but she goes with a baseball bat because, she's worried about maybe this random person that's here, but also is she worried about Jack? Because who knows? She's slowly losing her mind, but in a different way. Than Jack is. She goes into the room where Jack's working, but Jack isn't there. And she sees the manuscript he's been working on, and she looks at it. Another iconic moment is she sees the first page, and all it says is, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And that's all it is on that page. And then she looks at the next page, and it's the same thing. But all of it is formatted differently. It's, there's typos in some sentences and not, the margins are different. And it's hundreds and hundreds of pages of just that. That's all Jack has been typing this entire time, is all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. It is terrifying.
Absolutely.
Especially as she's looking at it, the shot where he's behind her.
Yeah.
And he appears in the room and he's behind her. Shit's about to go down now. Absolutely. For sure.
And it's so two things. Well, three things. It again makes me think of The Simpsons, how well they did this. All work and no play makes Homer go crazy. Don't mind if I do. Like, that's one of my favorite lines ever. Secondly, so the story is, I don't know if it's apocryphal or not, no two pages of that entire manuscript could have been the same. That was Kubrick's order. So an actual props person had to sit at a typewriter and type all that shit. So every page was formatted differently, which is fucking crazy in of itself.
Absolutely.
The third thing is, and this is like my key component, you don't even need anything to do with the ghosts in this movie, because this tells me Jack was crazy from before he even stepped inside of this hotel, right? Like he's always been off of his rocker. And that's sort of the implication that whatever is here just took advantage of somebody that was already fucked up. And so that's an even more deep of gut punch. Like this would have happened to Wendy and Danny no matter where they were. Like it's just the isolation pushed him.
Yeah, but I also think, I may be wrong, but I think this is one of the reasons that Stephen King did not like this,
I think so too.
is because he did not like that implication. Because yes, Jack was an alcoholic, definitely, but he was not a crazy person. The hotel is what made him, with the ghost and the shining and the all that, is what made him a crazy person. So he didn't like the fact that, like you're saying, that this could have happened on a random Tuesday in Baltimore or
Because
whatever.
I think that's the thing. I think Nicholson plays it crazy from the moment it starts, right? Like I think that's his over the topness is always headed towards that denouement of insanity. Which we could talk about, has its pros and cons, but I think it's part of the thing that makes it such an iconic performance is like there are no breaks from him in this movie,
Yeah. And so this is the scene where, they confront each other about what's been going on. And Jack is Jack in this scene, but she is incredible in this scene.
Yeah.
She is so good. And Jack starts talking about like the issues he's having at the hotel. He's making some actually fair points, but he's crazy about it and he's acting crazy. And the line that she says that is so good, she says, "I'm so confused," as she's holding the bat, afraid Jack's going to attack. And she just says, "I'm so confused." And if you think about it, just from the standpoint of a wife, this is her husband. It's been her husband, the father of her child. They've been married for so many years and she loves him. And he's acting this way, but he hasn't done anything maybe super crazy yet, other than all this weird typing or whatever. And she just like, I'm so confused. It was awesome and heartbreaking.
Yeah.
All at the same time. It was so good that she said that. And then Jack's retort is, he says, "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in."
Yeah. Well, doesn't he add fucking in there somewhere? "I'm just going to bash your
I think he might repeat
brains in." Yeah.
Yeah. I think he then repeats it, to her, and he adds fucking. But like, it is terrifying because again, he looks unhinged.
Yeah.
For most of the movie, but even more so now.
Yeah.
He looks unhinged. And she just hits him with a baseball bat and he falls down the stairs and he's knocked out. And she takes him and, puts him in the pantry and locks him in the pantry where he can't get out. And so she goes, because her plan is to take the snowcat and take her and Danny, get out of there, go down the path, but the snowcat, Jack's messed that up too.
Mhm.
So they don't have a way out of there at the moment. Jack is locked up, so there's safety in that regard, but it's still like, what are we going to do? Because you can't leave the hotel,
If only we had a
so-
scene that promised us another snowcat was coming. If only that scene was in the film.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
wait.
glad that it's perfect foreshadowing. We had to talk about the snowcat. Even like he's like, "We don't even need this." He's like, what do you need to go up there for?" And he's like, "Well, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but there's a couple of deadbeats up there." And it's like, whatever. Just say, "I just need a snowcat. I got to get to the hotel." I mean, we don't need all that crap. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so Jack's in the pantry, and this is one of the things that I don't like, because Grady's outside the pantry talking to Jack about, "Hey, dude, you effed up. What are you doing in here?" And Grady lets him out of the pantry.
See, I love this scene because, again, I think it deals a lot with those power dynamics of The entire time, Jack wants Wendy to be submissive to him. But in this moment, we see Grady take a dominant force as Jack becomes submissive to something bigger than himself. As Grady's like, I don't think you're committed to the plan, sir. We should find someone else. And Jack's like, no, give me a chance. Give me a chance. But I love the fact you never see Grady. So even now, it's like, is he just a fucking nut job? You know what I mean? Like,
well, I would think that, honestly, but the fact that the door gets unlocked is what I don't like about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is at that point, they have opened the door for Jack to get out. And now I'm at the point really where, I mean, I get it to a degree. There's some mental stuff going on. But if the ghosts can do anything, then why don't they do everything? Like, what now? We're going to let Jack out, but Jack has to be the one to kill his family. I mean, I just don't understand the rules.
Well,
I don't like it. But I like the fact that he could be going crazy this whole time, and none of these people are there except for the fact that he's locked into this room, and now he gets out.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I got nothing to combat it.
Yeah, that's again, if there would have been something going on where, I don't really know, where possibly she ties Jack up instead and Jack gets untied, but like maybe he untied himself. You could make that argument, where he untied himself or Grady did it. You don't know, but you unlock the door. So that's what I don't like. But anyway, so now we see Danny writing red rum on the wall, and Wendy wakes up or looks in the mirror or something and sees that red rum is actually murder spelled backwards. Now, I understand that red rum is iconic. We've already talked about this, but I'm really like, whatever. What's the big deal? Like, he's just saying red rum, like, big deal. I mean, murder. What? There's going to be murders going, like, this was not impressive to me at all. The fact that it spelled murder. I get it.
I think it's just circumstance stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the fact that A, your husband's gone crazy. B, your child who has a monster living in his mouth has now said a creepy word. Yeah, fuck. I'm scared. I'm already scared. This is where I'm tapping out. At this point.
Oh, finally.
Finally, I'm done. I'm like, wait, I can't get to the food anymore. Fuck it, I'm done. Like, it's
well, yeah, because you can't eat meat because that was in the freezer.
Yeah,
but nothing else.
Nothing in the pantry.
No, that's going to get old real quick. Just eating meat. That's it. So she sees murder, and now Jack is at the door with an axe, and he's busting in. And Wendy takes Danny to the bathroom, and they lock themselves in the bathroom. And Jack's in the room, and he is trying to bust into the bathroom. She opens the bathroom window, sends Danny out, but she won't fit out the window because of the snow drift and the size of the window.
Science. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. So Jack is busting through the door with the axe. And this is, again, in a movie filled with iconic moments, maybe the most iconic.
It's the cover half the time,
Yeah. He sticks his head through because his head will fit through the window and he says, "Here's Johnny." But there's a couple things I want to say about this.
Mm-hmm.
To me, the shot, like either right after it or before it, multiple times, the shot of Wendy in the corner, screaming, holding the knife, and the axe coming through the door is one of the most, to me, iconic horror shots in movie history.
Absolutely.
More so than the "Here's Johnny." That's the shot of horror. Yeah, Jack Nicholson being all crazy, sticking his head through a door, saying, "Here's Johnny." But Wendy holding a knife, there is fear in her eyes.
Yeah.
In every fiber of her being, she is terrified. And part of an axe is coming through the door. It's a great shot. Great.
To me, this sequence is comprised of 3 shots. It is over the violence to Wendy. That's one, the one you're just discussing. It is Jack Nicholson through the crack of the door. And the last one, as he hits the piece of wood out, it hits the camera. Oh, I love that. And then it's prior to that, as he swings the axe. We back up with the axe and we move with it and jolt with it when it hits the wood. And so all three of those in tandem, it's like, that's the sequence. You know what I mean? Every single one of those is powerful. So, but
yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing. I hate the next shot. Is my least favorite moment in the entire movie. It's actually still the same "Here's Johnny" shot. He does the "Here's Johnny" thing, and then takes the longest amount of fucking time ever to try to unlock the door. It's like he literally goes, "Here's Johnny." All right, let me just go through here with just put my hand in the spot. And I'm like, why did you become a bumbling idiot for 2 seconds? Like,
well, you know, what's funny is, so again, being younger when I watched this movie, I had already seen from clips or whatever this shot of Jack saying, "Here's Johnny." Okay. Jack's real name, you know, Jack Torrance in the movie, but Jack Nicholson, but he's saying, "Here's Johnny." So I didn't even know that was a Johnny Carson reference because I was like too young to really understand that's what he's doing. So when watching this movie for the very first time, already knowing that here's Johnny, and they're having the interview, and they call him Jack. I'm like, what is happening? His real name's Jack Nicholson. They're calling him Jack here. Did they screw up? I thought his name was Johnny because that's what I thought. That his name was Johnny forever because here's Johnny. Not even thinking it's like a reference to Johnny Carson or whatever. But so that's what I thought forever till, like, you know, again, I actually saw the film at some point. You know, I was like, oh, his name's Jack, not Johnny. And I think that I read that that was improvised.
Yeah,
The
that's
"Here's
what
Johnny"
I've
line.
Yeah,
Yeah, because Stanley Kubrick had no idea who Johnny Carson was. And again, I think the other shot is a more iconic horror shot to me, but there's no debating that the "Here's Johnny" is one of the most iconic moments in horror history.
absolutely.
You know? So again, and it was improvised. It's crazy. So he tries to open the door. She actually does the thing that people should do all the time in movies like this. She cuts his hand with the knife when he's trying to open it. Yeah, that's your option. That. Don't let them just open the door and, you know, just scream. Yeah. Cut it. You know, try to cut his hand. So she does that, and then they hear the snowcat coming. I wonder who it could be. You know, it's not like we hadn't seen Dick Halloran on his way for the past 5 hours. Jeez. So he's coming on the snowcat. So Jack leaves to go take care of this new person coming into the scene or whatever. And this was super surprising to me the first time I watched it. Like, super surprising. So Dick gets here. He goes in the hotel. He's like hollering for people. He's like, "Mrs. Torrance, Mr. Torrance." He's looking for him. And just out of nowhere, just out of the blue, Jack comes and just acts him right in the belly, kills him right away. Like, that was shocking the first time around because I was like, again, you had to build it up forever that the hero's coming. We had to see all these shots, and he literally does nothing. I get it. He brings the snowcat that comes into play later. But other than, you know, him bringing that vehicle, he does nothing. Even with the power of The Shining, he walks right into it and immediately gets killed by Jack.
But I think it is, you know, and now it makes it sort of ironic that you mentioned Psycho when you were trying to do Poltergeist. It's the same sort of idea there. Like, you see in Psycho, you see 2 murders. I guess in this one you do 2, but one of the most impactful ones is Psycho is like the guy who is this close to cracking the case, our only hope of salvation, eats it in the face, right? Like the stab in the face. And the same thing is applicable here. The man who is our hope for salvation, we're taking him out. Now what hope do you have? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. And then I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah.
You know, definitely I was expecting, because again, it established not that just he's like the detective, like in Psycho, who's smart, you know, potentially, who's maybe kind of figured this out. But Dick also has the Shining.
Yeah.
He can see visions of the future, but he doesn't see that. And he's just, you know, immediately killed. And so now Jack, having dispatched Dick, he's after Danny. Danny's running around. And then Wendy starts seeing crazy shit too. Again, I like it better if the idea is Jack just going crazy. But
Mhm.
now Wendy's seeing the crazy stuff too. And it's like, why? She's seeing like a furry giving head to some dude
Yeah.
in a room. Like, what? That's
I
Stanley Kubrick. Whatever.
I love the look that the furry and the guy give of like, how rude of her to stare at us.
Yeah.
Like that's the, and then I love the what a swell party guy. Like that's my favorite.
Yeah. And then she's seeing like random skeletons, the
Yeah,
blood elevator, which is again, was just recently copied in Evil Dead Rise.
absolutely.
And I thought it worked perfectly in Evil Dead Rise.
Me too.
It was awesome how they did it. When I saw that that was the shot that was about to happen, I literally clapped in the theater because I was like, "This works.
Yeah.
This blood elevator works here in Evil Dead Rise." It was awesome. But so again, weird stuff's happening with Wendy. Whatever. Uh, Danny runs outside and he runs into the maze, and Jack chases him. Chase scene much better than your chase scene in Dress to Kill, walking around the
I'll agree
art
with that.
gallery.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Not as much sex, thankfully, as that one would go.
No, no. So Danny, what he actually ends up doing is walking backwards to
Mhm.
like trick Jack, with his tracks as far as that goes. And when he does that, he gets out of the maze. He finds his mom. Jack's kind of lost in the maze. He's ranting and raving inside the maze. And Wendy and Danny get on the snowcat and they head out. And then we go back to Jack, like I said, inside the maze. Then it just cuts to like the next morning, Jack's just frozen outside.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, that's a bit anticlimactic for me. Like that whole end sequence is a bit anticlimactic. Nothing like Danny does outsmart Jack to a degree by doing that, but then Jack just freezes to death in the maze. Like no one beats him.
Well,
Wendy doesn't stab him. Nothing happens. I'm not feeling that piece of it, honestly.
but I think it is like I love as he's screaming, he becomes more animal. Like he's trying to call out Wendy's name, but it just becomes "Wah!" Like it's just that over and over again, which is interesting because it is like this de-evolution that's occurring. But I think it's sort of like the maze, the labyrinth of the Overlook wins. You know what I mean? Like he's so far lost into it and couldn't fulfill his promise to the motel that's what happens, and he forever will be frozen there. That's why our next shot is into the Gold Club and we're seeing him forever as an image trapped, on the July 4th party thing. But that's just my,
And I do love that final image
Yeah.
of Jack as if he's always been there, just like the guy said, "You've always been the caretaker." And then it's
Yeah.
from what is it,
24.
1921 or something like
Yeah.
that. So I love that image, that shot, super cool. And Jack is front and center at the party,
Yeah.
like you said, always a part of the hotel. And that's the end of Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
I'm telling you, like, God, it's such a good movie. I don't get you. It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal movie.
Well, even when we're going over this, there's plenty of moments that I just love. Absolutely love. I really do. There's just some things that bother me about it that, that makes it okay. But like there is a lot of iconic moments. I get this being a film. As you said, does this belong on the list? 100% it belongs on the
100%.
list. Like absolutely. It's a good film.
Yeah.
Have
Have you seen,
now? That's what I was about to ask. Probably.
have you seen the one that Stephen King prefers?
Yes, with Steven Weber.
I have not seen it. Is it good? Do you like
Yes.
the remake?
No, I
guess?
don't like it as good. I don't like it
Okay.
as good. But I think it's a mini series,
I think so too.
and I watched it when it actually premiered, whatever year that was. So it's been a long time, but it was again, it's a TV miniseries, so it's cheap to a degree,
Yeah.
and there's special effects in the sense that like the maze lions come to life and they just look cheap, as
Yeah.
far as that goes. I there's like more like I guess that it's clear, like Stephen King wants, that the hotel turns him crazy. It's really a forgettable film, but I did look at like my letterbox score that I gave it. So, I gave the miniseries like a 2.5. So
I need
it's
to, I need to go
not
back and
great.
watch it then, just to see it, just to be that completionist. What did you give this one? I gave this one 5 stars because it's The
Three
Shining.
and a half for this one.
Yeah,
Again, it's
damn.
listen, 3.5 is good for me, but like I said, there's just problems I have with it. Like
I just
it's
feel there like
slow in parts.
there's like, even if you're being sincere about it, there's a couple of fan bases you just don't like want to piss. You don't want to piss off the Kubrick heads or the Snyder people. You know what I mean? Like they're just gonna come for you like in a hard way. So I just Chad Dowdy at 192, whatever. That's where you people.
First of all, I said it's better than the other one, and 3.5 is better than the average. And I praised many moments of this film, iconic moments.
Hey, tell the Stanley Kubrick heads, not me.
Now,
Um,
now what do you think about? Have you seen Doctor Sleep, the
I
sequel
have, I
with
have.
Ewan McGregor? And what do you think about that?
I love Doctor Sleep. I thought it was a great sequel to this film. Like I think he did such a great job of sort of combining those different elements. You know what I mean? And finding the book stuff, but also, hey, this is in that world. And when we returned to the Overlook, I mean, it felt like we were there again. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah,
loved it.
it really did. Yeah, I dug it too. I liked it as well. Uh, it makes you kind of. I don't think it was totally like this in the movie, but I read the book as well, Doctor
Mhm.
Sleep, and Danny is just like not like a great person
Yeah.
in the book, and it kind of
Yeah.
makes you feel bad that
Yeah.
he went through all this trauma. He couldn't help it. He couldn't
Yeah.
help that he has The Shining, and now he's like doing drugs and stealing money from people, and all this stuff, and it kind of makes you feel bad,
And
for
it's
Danny being the little kid
absolutely.
that grows up.
And I don't think they really convey that in the movie, but I think it's also difficult when you have Ewan McGregor because he's just really likable. Like Ewan McGregor to me
Exactly.
is the only thing I don't like him in is Black Mask or as Birds of Prey as Black Mask, but even then he's kind of a lovable asshole still. Like I still, am
Yeah,
entertained by
he's
him.
fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that brings us to the thing that, even watching this, when I started, not on Mother's Day because I'm not weird, to watch this movie, I turned it on and I got like halfway through it. I'm, mesmerized by it, but I'm like, oh, fuck, I got to recast this. Oh, that feels sacrilegious. Um, but here's my pitch. If I'm going to redo it, I'm not going to try to top what this was. I don't know what the miniseries does, but I'm going to try to make it better than that, which that's a 2 star. So hopefully I could do that. So I'm going to the Overlook is going to look drastically different than this does in every way. But I'm going to also try to play into those things that Stephen King would dislike. So it's going to be more of, you know, was he crazy always? Is he just a gaslighter? Is Danny abused? I'd play into that. Is he on the spectrum thing? I'd play into all of those. Is it or is it not vibes? And
Right.
then the end, just the cacophony of ghosts and all that stuff. Here'd be my cast. I only got 3, but I would do Glenn Howerton as Jack, just because
Okay.
feel like it's as far away from Nicholson as we could go, but I think he can also be much more grounded in it. Gemma Chan as Wendy, because
Like it.
I think she's going to do something drastically different. And then for Dick, I'm going to do Delroy Lindo because again, I think he's going to do something different, and I'll give him more nude velvet paintings in his house. So, what about you? What do you got?
So a couple ways I thought about it too. And so I totally agree that recasting this movie is a futile effort
Yeah,
just because it's Jack Nicholson. So you're trying to replace Jack Nicholson, number one, and then Shelley Duvall with one of the most iconic performances as well. So
absolutely.
it's difficult. My first thought, which I'm not going with because she's too old, but I thought Toni Collette could pull off uh, this, but she's too old to have a young kid.
Mhm.
So ultimately, I didn't go with Toni Collette because of that. So I actually went a little bit different as far as Jack. I went with John Hamm because I would love to see a guy who's prim and proper in almost everything that you see him in slowly lose his mind, and then I want to see him act crazy.
Yeah.
Like I'd really love to see that. And then I didn't cast Dick. I didn't. But for Shelley Duvall's role, Rachel McAdams. Every woman, uh, she's just again lovable as can be.
Mhm.
She can be earnest as all get out, and I think she's got the acting chops to pull it off as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not mad at that. I like that a lot. I just anything I could see Rachel McAdams in makes me happy. So
I'm a big fan of hers for sure.
yeah. So that is the Shinning. What do we have next? What's next up?
So the next is 1980s Fade to Black, directed by Vernon Zimmerman. Prior to the In Search of Darkness documentary, I've never even heard of this film.
I've seen it relatively recently. I think, yeah, it's the movie one, right?
Yeah, there's something about either a movie inside of a movie or the guy's making a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
Again, the little knowledge I have of this film is just a snippet of information when they talk about it in the In Search of Darkness documentary, which we neglected to mention at the beginning of the show. That's actually what we're doing. We're going through the In Search of Darkness films. So Fade to Black is the next one on the list.
This is not the worst movie by any means. I'm excited about it. You're going to see, I want to say it's Mickey Rourke. Yeah, Mickey Rourke's in it. And somebody else is in it that I liked. Tim Thomerson is in it, who you might know via my other podcast, Once in a Full Moon. He's a big full moon guy. He's also in a couple episodes of Murder, She Wrote. That'll be the next podcast, Murder, She Podcasted.
You and Rob watching those old TV shows.
Yeah. I'm excited. I think, especially since you've never seen Fade to Black, it's gonna be
never even heard of it.
You're gonna be surprised by it. I mean, it's the star is kind of mesmerizing in what he does. It's a weird movie. But yeah, I can't wait. But until then, Chad, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram, NQC Podcast.
Awesome. And if you want to find me, I will be in the Not Quite Darkness.
Peace.
Michael Caine.